look, we all know what's going on in the world right now. And we know that Rabbi Cosgrove is actually somewhere probably over the Atlantic Ocean right now, coming back from a couple days in Poland, where I know, Jonathan, just because I saw a picture that the two of you met up on the border doing the sacred work that you do. So I want to welcome our guest this afternoon. It's a guest, he's a friend to the synagogue. Jonathan Ornstein has served as the executive director of the Jewish Community Center of Krakow since its opening in 2008, April 2008, by the Prince of Wales. There's a whole story there. The organization is devoted to rebuilding Jewish life in Krakow, has become one of Poland's most visible signs of Jewish revival. Prior to the center's opening, Jonathan lectured in Jewish studies at Krakow's, Jonathan, there's just no way I'm going to be able to pronounce this word, the university where you lectured. I'll let you, you can say that name, for 6 years, founded the Gesher Association for Poland-Israeli Dialogue. Jonathan is a native of New York City, moved to Israel in 1994, living for 7 years on a kibbutz in the Negev, serving for 2 years in a combat unit in the IDF before making his way to Poland in 2001. He's a founding member of the Krakow Association of Christians and Jews, and also serves as vice president. He's on the boards of the Krakow branch of the Child Survivors of the Holocaust Organization, JCC Global. Jonathan was awarded the Cohen Award for services benefiting the Jewish people in 2014, the Polish Foreign Ministry Ben Merito Medal for his work promoting Poland in 2015. A bigger lover of the Jewish people you will not meet than Jonathan. I consider him a friend, and it's really just a privilege, Jonathan, to welcome you here. I want to acknowledge on the Zoom as well, Vicki Warner, who is the president, a member of Park Avenue Synagogue, and is also the president of the Board of Trustees of the JCC Krakow. So let's just pause there, Jonathan, because I know this is an extraordinarily busy time for you. And I want to thank you in advance for taking time out of the work that you're doing to speak to us. And, you know, Jonathan's also a new father, so you're really burning it on all ends. So Jonathan, welcome. And in advance, I want to thank you for taking the time to be with us this afternoon.
Thank you, Neil. Jagiellonian was the word.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
It's a pleasure to be with you. I feel like I'm at home when I'm with my friends from Park Avenue Synagogue. I feel, although you know, if I say I feel like a member, I might get an email asking for my membership dues. So I might not say I feel like a member, but I feel like a very special guest always. Thank you,
Jonathan. You'll get more than a membership dues. You'll start getting fundraising calls from us.
Exactly.
So we'll track you down all the way to Krakow. So before we get to the work that's really what's happening right now, tell us a little bit about you. I mean, I read your bio, but it doesn't really tell the full story. Tell me, and you can be as succinct as you want about this, but tell us about you and the JCC of Krakow, because for those of us who have traveled to Poland and spent time at the JCC, it's just I don't know, it's just an amazing place that exists right in the old part of, you're right there in the Jewish quarter in Krakow, and it's really an extraordinary place. So tell us a little bit about you and the work you do.
Sure. Maybe I'll talk about the work that we do, and I think that's a little more interesting. So the center was founded, as you said, by Prince Charles in 2008. It's an interesting story. He was visiting Krakow a few years earlier. He met with some survivors and he wanted to help. And the original idea was to do a senior citizens center. And that sort of morphed and grew into an idea of not only helping survivors, which we're doing, but to also help young people who are finding out about their Jewish roots. So you have a whole generation of people whose families went underground during communism, of Jews who didn't know they were Jewish. And now, since communism ended in 1989, people are finding out they're Jewish. So our center is really dedicated to taking care of our Holocaust survivors, and we're doing a lot of the heavy lifting there. There's no federation, there's no Jewish Family Services. We're the ones taking care of, at this point, 50 Holocaust survivors, and reviving Jewish life. So people are coming in still all the time, having just found out they're Jewish. You mentioned that I'm just a new father. My wife actually is someone who she herself grew up without knowing she was Jewish, and found out in her 20s that she was Jewish, and came into the JCC to start exploring her Jewish roots, and found a director that was very eager to help her explore her Jewish roots. So that's really the narrative is a community that's an hour's drive away from Auschwitz, that people associate with death and tragedy, and that has really been defined as a place, seen through the prism of the Holocaust. And we've really tried to tell the world, and with our help of places like your synagogue that have visited us, and taken such interest in what we're doing, tried to show the world that Poland and Krakow is not only a place of death and not only of tragedy, but a place of life. And that while it's important for us to remember the Holocaust and to learn its lessons and to make sure it never happens to us or anyone else again, that it's also incredibly important to focus on life. And the highest Jewish value is life. And that if there's life growing here and being nurtured here in Krakow, then these young people deserve to be seen and heard. And that's really, I think, been what our philosophy has been since opening. And to do that, we have Hillel and BBYO, and we have a preschool, and we're doing a lot of programming to do in that vein. But the real goal is to rebuild Jewish life, to take care of our survivors, and to make sure that the Jewish world sees what's happening here, not only because we need to be seen by the Jewish world, but because I think that at a time of increased anti-Semitism, when synagogues in the United States and across the world have come under attack, that we are reminded of the strength of the Jewish people, that Jewish life can thrive not only on the Upper East Side and in Tel Aviv and in Florida and in California, but Jewish life can thrive here in Krakow, down the road from Auschwitz. And I think it really reminds us of the eternal nature of the Jewish people.
Yeah, I mean, it's, we were there several years ago, and we were at the JCC, and I think that there's just something so extraordinary about, on the one hand, there's a room where there's survivors who are, spending time together and programming for the survivors. And you've got the first preschool in Krakow, in I don't know how many years. So there's this, as you said the work you do, extends both to survivors. And I just can only imagine what it was like for you to sort of launch that preschool in Krakow.
The preschool is very, very special, something very close to my heart. And of course, the preschool has a very strong Park Avenue connection. Park Avenue members were the ones who made it possible to open the preschool, and I'm very thankful to that. So we're even more connected than we might realize. But yeah, no, absolutely. On one floor we have Holocaust survivors, and on the floor above are their grandchildren and great grandchildren in a preschool. And a real challenge for us has been the generations in between, people that came of age during communism. And that weren't told that they were Jewish. And a Jewish community is made up, Medor Lador. We're always communicating. If you think, how do you become Jewish, right? You don't become Jewish necessarily in school, or very often you don't become Jewish the moment you walk into a synagogue. You're joining a synagogue, or you're part of a synagogue because there's a good chance you grew up there, or a synagogue like it, or it was transmitted to you from your grandparents, to your parents, to you. And in many ways that's been broken in Poland because of the Holocaust, and then because of communism. So we're trying to rebuild those things. So by having all of this going on under one roof, there's a certain synergy, I think, that we achieve by having our survivors interaction with the preschool kids and having the kids come and be with the survivors, and they're sort of rebuilding Judaism from the inside because these families have been torn apart by the tragic history here in Poland.
And it's just to sort of, move on from this part of the conversation. For us, I remember, I'm pretty sure it was Friday that we went to Auschwitz, and and then we drove back to Krakow and had Shabbat dinner at the JCC, which was, it's just hard to believe, that a place, that there is a Jewish community center in Krakow, which, Jonathan, you're too humble to take full credit for that, but that comes about, the hard work that you have done, and that I know many people in this community, as you said, who are proudly affiliated with the JCC. So let's shift gears a little bit, and let's talk about what's going on right now. So tell us, I don't even, tell us, talk to me about the last few weeks of your life, and then we can get into some of the details about the work that the JCC is providing both at the border and in Krakow.
So we all woke up, I think it was almost 3 weeks ago, to something that in certain ways was, the soldiers were massed at the borders, but I don't think any of us really thought that there was going to be a full-scale attack and invasion of Ukraine. Straight away, there was no question for us about whether or not we would respond. We understood, it was an automatic response from us as an organizationally that we would do everything that we could to support Ukraine. That immediately meant refugees. That meant people pouring across the border, women and children, because men between 18 and 60 for the most part, can't leave. So you're talking about, one, people that are leaving, running away from war, but also people that are leaving their families, their fathers and brothers and husbands and sons, loved ones behind to in an uncertain situation. So we first thing we did was hang a big banner in front of the building where it usually says you walk into our building, as many of you have, and you walk under a banner that says building a Jewish future in Krakow. And we created a new banner which says in Ukrainian in blue and yellow, big blue and yellow letters, welcome, just so people would understand that they have a place that they can come into. We became straight away a collection point, a collection and distribution point for supplies. That means food, clothing, medicine, sanitary supplies, diapers, all of those things started to pour into our center. We called out for them, and people started to come in to take them. So at this point, we probably have 200, 250 Ukrainians a day, maybe more, coming in and taking whatever they need. Housing is, of course, a huge issue. If you think that these people are displaced, they have nowhere to go. They've left with, nothing. Sometimes someone carrying a baby and maybe a backpack in certain situations. We are now, so we found hotel rooms and apartments. We're currently housing about 200 people, and that number is going up. We have 2 people who are working full-time just to find housing for these people, to find hotels and to talk to different hotels and try to find apartments and to try to put more people. The city of Krakow now has 120,000 refugees, and the city itself is taking care of 8,000 of them. We just had a meeting yesterday with the mayor, and this was the somewhat terrifying statistic that he told us. So the city is taking care of 8,000 of the 120,000. I'm sure that was yesterday was 120,000. It's probably 130 or 140 today. And you see the vast majority need to be taken care of by private citizens that have just opened their homes and opened their hearts and welcomed people in, or NGOs like ours.
The other, Jonathan, I'm sorry to interrupt, but so if 8,000 are being taken care of by the city, what are the other what's the story with the other refugees who are
So
not?
some people's houses, people have taken refugees in their houses, which is also very complicated because you're dealing with issues of human trafficking and you're not vetting people and you don't know. Somebody says, oh, it's women and children coming across the border. And somebody, you can have people in a predatory sense. Oh, sure, I'll take all those women into my house. It's a very, very complicated situation that there's not really any official vetting going on with that. So we are more comfortable putting people into their own apartments or into hotel rooms than just sending people off into somebody's house that hasn't been vetted. As you would imagine, there's a lot of opportunity there to take advantage of that in terrible ways. So that's an added complexity to it. We've set up a safe space, a daycare for children, and then a safe space next to it for their mothers. We have about 30 children in that daycare, and then a space that we've set up and furnished for mothers. We're providing them kind of a nice place that they can hang out with coffee, have a snack, also providing them with English language class and Polish and job advice to help them get in the workforce. As of today, Ukrainians in Poland can work. They've been granted, they can apply for ID numbers and work, which was not the case until now, that they could legally work. So that's something we've set up this mother-child safe space a few minutes away from the center. We've also set up a main information point, working with a few other organizations, some of which like Ukrainians in Krakow, Ukrainian organizations, to help serve the refugees. You have 25 native speakers of Ukrainian who are in there at any point. So they're being directed to social services that are available in Krakow, which of course are stretched very thin. But what there is, if people need to go to a hospital, if people don't have a place to stay, they try to match them. And there are 100 people living in the space. So we're now responsible for feeding those people and giving support to help run. We're paying some of the salaries for these people that are serving this community in this information point. We're also helping people with transport. We have people walking in our building and saying, I have a cousin in Paris. He's willing to take me there, but my credit card doesn't work. I have no money. I can't change money because no change place will accept the Ukrainian currency, which is completely collapsed. So we'll buy people a train ticket, a plane ticket, whatever, to help them get wherever they need to go, to help them move on. And we're always happy to see if somebody has somebody willing to take them in, and we're trying to provide that. But the real, we're thinking, we're in Krakow, so we're very much focused on what's happening in Krakow. But there are two other places that there's a lot of need. One is the border, especially the Ukrainian side of the border. So we're working with actually a Christian organization that we've worked with for a while, which is they have a presence on the Ukrainian side of the border. If you would imagine, these people are leaving cities in Ukraine. However they can, they get on a bus or a train, or they hitchhike if they have their own car, but it's very hard to get gas for your car. People are coming to the border in any way that they can, and it takes them days and days very often to get to the border. And then once they're at the border, it takes a while to get through. So these people that have, a couple small children maybe get to the border and might have taken them 3-4 days to get to the border, and then a couple days at the border. So we work with an organization and we've helped them purchase tents, heated tents at the border, provide them with emergency medical care, warm food at the border. This organization, which is, by the way, amazing, they are also going in with supplies into Ukraine and bringing people out. So we're helping them with paying for their gas. We're helping them in all different ways that we can support them to help them bring people out. The other day, they had 29 buses full of supplies went in and brought people out. 1,000 people at once they were able to bring out through the border. We got a call the other day, for example, from somebody that we work with here that's at a Jesuit university that was in touch with an orphanage, a facility in Ukraine that helps children with autism, that there were 45 children with autism that were getting to the border, and they had nowhere to go from the border. So we arranged a bus and sent the bus to go meet those children at the border and bring them to Vienna, where there was an organization waiting to host them. So we're just trying to wearing a lot of hats. We're also sending in direct medical supplies going into Ukraine. We have a small organization that we work with, which is great because they're nimble and they find out that there's a place, a hospital in Kharkiv, let's say, that needs certain supplies, and we're able to help them buy them here in Poland, and then we're sending them. They go into Lviv, which is a big Ukrainian city not far from the Polish border, and then they get sent in. So, I mean, besides this challenge for us, which is dealing with, essentially running what is now in 2.5 weeks become a humanitarian organization, we're also usually just a service provider. People around the world and many supporters that I see on this call help us give their generous gifts to allow us to take care of a Jewish community that we provide services to. But now we're seeing that there are organizations here that have a capacity, an expertise, and an ability to do things that we don't have, but what they don't have is funding. So we're now giving these grants, working with these organizations to be able to amplify what we're doing and reach people that we as a Jewish community center in Krakow wouldn't be able to do.
I mean, Jonathan, the needs are just massive. To hear you just tick off, what you've been doing these last few weeks, it's I mean, forget exhausting, right? I just don't know, because I'm thinking about, I've been to the JCC, and some people on this call, I think some of us on this call might think, oh, JCC, I'm thinking about the massive JCC structure out in the suburbs, right? But this is it's a beautiful building, but it's not a building that can accommodate necessarily thousands of refugees at a time. And so the bandwidth of what you're still, as you said, providing services to the people of Krakow who rely on your services, but you've turned it, it's also become, as you described, basically a place of humanitarian aid. So I'm going to come back. I'm sorry, Jonathan, go ahead.
Oh, yes, no, I was just agreeing with
you. So, there's the bandwidth issue of what you're doing. I mentioned, for those who came on, even when you and I were talking before, there's also the fact that, you have a family and you have a newborn daughter, and Mazel Tov, of course. But just, to hear you describe the world you're living in right now, and the way that the JCC has stepped up to meet these needs is, it's just extraordinary, right?
Our community, if you think about it, not only our community, the Jewish world, the Holocaust happened because there was many reasons, but, on a basic level, there was a terrible dictator that the world didn't stand up to enough. So that's why we're in this situation. And I think that all of us as Jews feel a particular responsibility to help others because of our history. But imagine how acutely we feel that responsibility sitting here down the road from Auschwitz and dealing with the Holocaust every single day and having survivors every single day in our building. So whatever we have to do to help these people, we're going to do it. And that for us, not an option of if, it's just a question of how.
Right. And I wanted to, I hope it was clear to everyone that as you were describing the work of the JCC throughout these last couple of weeks, and what will, I'm sure, continue for quite some time, when you talk about refugees, you're not talking about just Jewish refugees. You're talking about all refugees. You're working with anyone who is fleeing Ukraine in a refugee crisis of the scope that we never thought we would see again. And, right, leading that charge in Krakow is the JCC of Krakow. And it shouldn't be lost on any of us, the proximity, to Auschwitz, or even seeing the images in Warsaw, the number of relief organizations that are set up in what was the area of the Warsaw Ghetto, right? We're talking about, you may not see it this way, but we're talking about a Kiddush Hashem, right? Talk about, Jews stepping up and saying, right, let's talk about what never again means. And we're actually seeing what it means, in the heart of where this destruction took place.
Yeah, so I mean, we're very focused, as you say, on non-Jews and Jews. It doesn't matter to us. We want to house and help as many people as possible. In the long term, our job at a certain point will, hopefully switch back to being a JCC, and there will be new members of our community. We had 1.5 million Ukrainians here before the war, which tells us that Poland is a place that Ukrainians want to live. So that if you have 1.5 million here before the war, then you can imagine how many will stay here after the war and after whatever destruction is going on in the country. But we're focused without question. Anybody who we can help, we're trying to help. The Jewish world, Jews in a certain way are much better off. There was the quote that everybody was talking about, which was this amazing quote by Natan Sharansky, talking about how it used to be such a, how difficult it was to be Jewish, and now it's helpful because of this network that we've built up and that we care
about. Best thing that can happen to you at the border is to be Jewish, right?
Right. And I'm not so comfortable with that, to be honest. I appreciate that, and I'm happy that it's not worse to be Jewish, but I don't like this idea. I don't think that's who we are as a people. I don't think the lesson of being Jewish means that we only care for ourselves. I think we do care for ourselves, but I think that we will be defined by how we care for others outside of our self-interest. And I am incredibly mindful of the fact that we as Jews have a responsibility, and we need to not only care about ourselves. At the end of the day, the Ukrainian Jewish refugees have it much better than the Ukrainian non-Jewish refugees, and that's something that we're very focused on. And I don't accept that. I don't accept that the non-Jews should have it so much worse. At the end of the day, it used to be that we were in the opposite position. And we were ignored. The pleas for help by the Jews and by the Jewish world were ignored during the Holocaust. And we have to be incredibly mindful to keep our ears open and to keep our hearts open and to make sure that we help everybody that we can.
I was talking to my son about this morning because, I know you're aware of the debate going on in Israel right now, and I'm not asking you as an Israeli but there is, picking up on what you just said, there is a significant debate in Israel about, to what, obviously, law of return and the Jewish agency is in Poland right now, facilitating Aliyah for Jewish Ukrainians. But then there's this question of what does Israel do with Ukrainians, non-Jewish Ukrainians who are trying to find a place to go, a safe haven, et cetera, and what should the Israeli posture be towards non-Jewish Ukrainians? And as I said to my son this morning, look, I get the tension, but we know what happened in World War II, right? As borders were being shut to Jews, and there's probably someone on this call right now, I'm not sure if Vera's on, whose parents were, on the Spirit of St. Louis, right? So we know that story. Do you have any? I mean, I'm just asking you, your thoughts about that as an observer and as an Israeli. Like, where could Israel be, or what could Israel be doing? And we know, by the way, people should know that there's a mobile hospital, I believe, that has in the process of being set up inside the border in Western Ukraine of, non-military Israeli mobile hospital to, help these refugees. But I'm just curious where your head is on that issue.
Israel does a very good job of doing things outside its borders. Right? Israel is so proud to send people all over the world, and we should all be proud as Jews that when there's an earthquake in Haiti, the first people and really the best at it in the world, for sad reasons really, of dealing with trauma are Israel. But you can't do that and then not be mindful of these people's basic needs and letting them in the country. And I don't think Israel has done a very good job with the Eritreans that are crossing the border and other groups that have, refugee groups, and giving them safe haven. And I don't want to belittle anybody who's helping or be critical of Israel in this sense. And I think it's amazing, and I'm proud as an Israeli citizen that Israel does that and sends people sends help and money and support and logistics everywhere that they can. But that's part of the picture. The other part of it is being able to absorb these people and to take them in, even if they're not, part of the Jewish family. We have a group, there's a family of 7 that actually, in the very early days of the crisis, we didn't have a whole system set up. And you'd imagine, you don't say no to people. So 2 weeks ago on Saturday morning, we got a text from somebody, people just get your number. It's one of, you never understand how that happens, but that there were people that were coming into Krakow. They were coming into the train station, a family of 7. They had a child who with autism. And I remember I went with Sebastian, who runs the place, who's the COO, and we went and we took the JCC as a vehicle, and we went and we picked these people up and brought them from the train station to the hotel that we'd secure for them. So there's a family of 7. It's this one who's the sister of I don't even know exactly what it's not like just a nuclear family. It's this extended family of 7. And we put them in 3 hotel rooms, and we gave them money to be able to buy food, and we're helping them in all different ways. And now Israel just passed a law that direct relatives of people, even if you're not Jewish, but you're a direct relative, you're allowed to go to Israel. So 2 of them were close enough relatives that they got on a flight today to Israel. But the other 5 are sitting there in the hotel. So what was sort of this organic unit, or thrown together organic unit, 2 of them, by virtue of having this relation or that relation, can go. So I'm mindful Israel's a tiny country. I'm not saying, Israel should just let everybody in and that would be fine. And, not any of that. But I think Israel has to be a little bit better in terms of who they let in. But at the end of the day, Israel is a tiny, tiny country. There is a different country that's a giant, mostly empty country, which is the United States, and the United States can certainly do a better job of letting people in, and I hope they'll do that. And I just think that it's so difficult to do things like that politically because of where the country is, and that it'll be used by one political party versus the other, and saying that we don't care about America. But the time to judge a society or anybody, the time to judge a human, the person, the time to judge an organization, the time to judge any society, a country, is how it responds during difficult times, during times of crisis. And I hope that, all of us can do what we need to do and respond well, in Israel and the United States as well.
Yeah, just to paraphrase the story of Esther, which we'll read tomorrow night, who knows if this wasn't the reason why we've achieved what we've achieved, right? To be able to step up in moments like this. Someone pointed out in the chat, thank you, reminding me that the field hospital is named after Golda Meir, right? Because Golda, like so many of us, and I spoke about this past Shabbat, part of the drama of this story in Ukraine isn't just that there's a sizable Jewish community. There's a massive refugee crisis, but for so many of us, including myself, my roots are, in what is now modern day Ukraine, so there's this really just intense, and sometimes conflicted, feeling towards the Ukraine, which I think for the most part, Jews have been able to sort of, whatever, misgivings we have about how Ukraine has treated Jews in the past, I feel like that's been sort of, put aside to say we recognize this massive need for relief that we can provide. Not to mention, as I talked about on Shabbat, that this same area is the birthplace of Jewish nationalism, which is ironically when these people leave Ukraine, they're being met by Israelis, who are there because of what happened on this land in the late 19th century in terms of, the ideology that would lead towards the birth of the state of Israel. Let me just tick through a couple of questions that have come up. Someone asked, how, and you mentioned sometimes they're buses, but I suspect that it's actually much more dramatic than that. How is somebody getting from a part of Ukraine to the border by Krakow or Warsaw or wherever they're crossing, to get this kind of relief? What's that trek like for the Ukrainians?
Very different. So as you'd imagine, and I think that many of us probably haven't thought too much about these things unless you were specifically connected. I mean, I guess been aware of refugees in these situations, but I never gave it the depth of thought that I've had to until now. So the first people that come are the people that are better off, right? They're better situated. If you have, your brother-in-law is in Paris, or you have, enough money that you can go and, pay for, go somewhere else, right? So the first people that left were the people who were more, it was easier for them. They were more upwardly mobile, let's say. So many of them drove in their cars. And that was sort of the first wave, got out, however. And then you start to see that people that stay longer are the people that, success are in a worse position. So there's all different ways to get out. Essentially, right now, you have a situation where the city closest to the Polish border, Lvov, or in Ukrainian, Lviv, we say in Polish, Lvov, which of course used to be a Polish city until World War II, and these borders have changed. It's also complicated when we say Ukraine and Poland and these things that, these borders were not what they were pre-war.
Pre-World War I, by the way. My grandmother's from Lvov. So
World War II, right? It was Austro-Hungarian Empire. So, right, very, very complicated. Those borders really have shifted a lot. So my family, part of my family was from Munkac. They would have spoke Hungarian, but now that's technically in Ukraine. But you would have said to them Ukrainian, they would have looked at you like you're crazy. So all these things, very complicated. So, but in all different ways. So you really have, it depends where where people are coming from. So essentially people are coming from the cities that are farther out along the edges, Kharkiv and cities in the south, Kherson, which is now closed, but coming and a lot of them are if they're coming to Poland, they're coming to the city of Lviv. And then we're trying to help them get out. So, some are, there are buses that are coming out. There are still trains that then go to the border in all different ways. I heard of people that are walking, but it's really a far walk. So people are getting any way that they can and any vehicle that they can. They are coming to the border. In Poland, there are 8 different border crossings. I've been to only 2 of them, but there are eight in Poland. There's also Hungary, Slovakia, Romania, and Moldova. So people are going into all of these countries, but by far the biggest country that they're coming to is Poland, and the one that they're trying to get to. If you think about, they want to go to, it depends where they're closer to, but Poland has by far the largest border. So they're getting any way they can to the border and then going at this point wherever they can go.
And it's winter, it's
winter.
Yeah.
Today was very warm, but it's been like when I was at the border 6 days ago, and it was snowing, and today was warm, but it's going to start to get cold again. So it's freezing overnight. It's every night, even when it's warm during the day. You're talking about in the 20s and 30s overnight.
So someone asked about the particular needs of Ukrainian Jewish refugees. I'd like, if you could answer that, and also just I think there's I would ask it in general as well. Like, what are the needs? And here I want to. Before you answer that question, Jonathan, because I'm sure that one of the needs is just, I'm thinking about the scope of what you're doing, and, you're not this didn't figure into your annual budget, right? When you sat down to do the budget, right? So obviously, one need is just money. And I know, because you were with Rabbi Cosgrove yesterday at the border, we've launched the ambitious campaign of raising $1 million to give towards Jewish relief organizations in Ukraine, all of our sort of pre-Purim and Passover, money that comes in, that when people are often giving tzedakah, giving charity to us, is being directed towards, one of 4 organizations, including the JCC of Krakow, right? So let's just establish that, yes, one of the things that you need and the people need is money. And because what you're describing is just, exorbitantly expensive, right? You're talking about buying plane tickets, train tickets, buses, this, food, whatever it is, right? But what are some of the particular needs of both the, refugees writ large and Jewish refugees in particular, if there's a difference?
Yeah. So I would say, first of all, besides the needs, besides money is money.
Right.
I'm just sorry for being crass about it, but it's about 10,000 at this. The number is like $10,000 a day for hotel rooms. And then this number is going up to house these people. So massive need, but these people need everything. They're coming into our center downstairs and they're taking underwear and socks, and they're taking diapers and Tylenol and clothing for themselves. And,
They have no money. They actually don't have any money themselves. As you said, the Ukrainian currency is basically dead.
Not only is it collapsed, but you can't, in Poland at this point, you could walk, if you have a wheelbarrow full of hernia, no one's taking them, just because the places stopped taking them a long time ago, and they don't all have access, to their credit cards or what they have. So, I mean, that's, on that level. So these people need psychological counseling. They've gone through a very difficult time. We're getting people walking in here who just went through bombings, right? They themselves were witnessed in the first wave of people. It wasn't happening really. It wasn't so much in the cities. Now, as Russia is stepping up and bombing more and more targets inside, you bomb the easiest targets first, and then you want to send a message. They're bombing inside cities, saying that anything to do with anything military is inside the cities. So we're providing them with therapy. We found Ukrainian, Russian-speaking therapists that we're providing them with, which is a big thing. The Jews, if they need kosher food, we're providing them with kosher food. We were busy printing up the Megillas in Russian, in Ukrainian, for them to be able to participate tomorrow night. That we'll have refugees with us, Ukrainians with us for Purim. I think that, I'm interested to see how many people say Haman and how many say Putin around the world tomorrow. Just the timing is what it is. People need everything. People really need everything. They need their kids to be in school. They need help. They need help to be able to try to rebuild their lives, and they're not sure. They need some type of certainty and certain clarity that we can't give them. So we can give them the things that we can, but these people don't know where their families are. They don't know what's happening to their, someone's fighting, or somebody, you have a lot of people that have older relatives that can't leave. And I have a Ukrainian young woman who works here, and her parents are in Kherson. Kherson was the first city in the south of Ukraine, the first city that fell. And every day I ask her, a couple times a day, did you speak to them? How are they? Anything? And she just looks at me, gives me this look that there's nothing much to do. These people are just, in a basement waiting this out. And hopefully they'll have enough food till the end, till they can do that. So, I mean, the needs here, the Jewish needs are the same as other needs, except for, kosher food. And, they understand that they're part of a Jewish world. And that's been, I think, if anybody forgets how interconnected the Jewish world is, and how the type of responsibility we feel for each other is something special, then I think you're reminded of it in a situation like this, as are the Ukrainian Jews. They understand that the world cares about them, and the world is there for them.
It's devastating to hear. I mean, especially when we know that, as you said, if you're an adult male, what is it, between like 18 and 60, whatever that age range is, you're not leaving. So you're dealing mostly, I would imagine, with women and children coming across the border. Yeah,
women, children, and the elderly. Yeah.
Right. Is there any way that they're communicating? Is there cell service? I mean, can they reach out to their loved ones who are still in Ukraine, or is it very spotty? And
depends where they are. It's been made easier for them, giving them phones. I think the cell phone companies here have been very good, and you can call Ukraine for free, which is really helpful. But a lot of the cell towers have been bombed. It's not so easy to communicate.
Yeah.
It's still doable, but it's not as automatic as it was before, obviously.
Somebody asked in the chat whether people can donate airline miles or hotel points. Right? there's a 21st century question.
That is a very good question. I don't know. I wish they could. And I promise that first of all, if somebody says they want to donate something within a very short period of time, I will figure out a way to be able to receive whatever it is that somebody wants to donate. So I'm on that, and I will figure that out. You talk about something like that. I'll tell you something funny, which is that, so we had a guy who came through, and he was in touch with us, Jewish guy. He didn't need financial help from us. He was doing all right, and had money to take care of himself, and was on his way passing through. But contacted us as the Jewish community. His wife was not Jewish. We were trying to help him with the Israeli government and with the embassy and the Safnud, and kind of dealing with all of those issues. And we were in touch, and just there, he understood that we were there. He didn't really need too much from us. But he was so moved by what we were doing that he said, he has a reasonably large, he's a crypto trader and has like crypto company. And he asked if we were set up to receive crypto, and we said no. And he said that that's what he's going to do once he goes, and he's going to Barcelona to set up his business there. But then he's going to hook us up and set us up with this, so we're able to receive crypto. So, but the next thing, absolutely, hotel miles and airline miles would be a great way to be able to do that. It would be fantastic to use the miles here and to be able to help these people get on their way.
Jonathan, I know you're busy and there's a lot to do, so we'll start to wrap up. But I want to sort of, ask you, personally. I mean, I happen to know you, and some of what you've done, and the ways in which your life has been devoted to the Jewish people. What are you feeling personally in this moment? Like, how does this, I know you're in it, right? And you're like, you are on, you're go, right? And, but if you stop and think about it, where does this sort of fit into the narrative of the Jewish narrative, right? And I'm not just talking, by that question, I don't mean, helping Jews necessarily, as you've described. The JCC is out there helping anyone who needs help, right? But you're doing it as a Jewish institution. And I'm just, how does this figure into your own sort of, Jewish story, from Aliyah, IDF, kibbutz, going to Poland, working to revive Polish Jewry, and the thousands and thousands of lives that have been touched by the JCC of Krakow. Probably a generous estimate, because I know if you're Jewish and you're going through Krakow, you're going to the JCC of Krakow. So what how are you sort of thinking about this in terms of your own story? And
as you would imagine, I haven't really been doing too much. There hasn't been a lot of introspection between this and a 6-week-old tomorrow baby. It's a busy time, but to be honest, I feel that I've never felt better about what I'm doing in 52 years than these last 3 weeks. And it's an absolute privilege to be in a position that you can help other people in this way, and see that your actions and the actions of your institution not only can help people, but have the residual benefit of reflecting well on the Jewish people. So I would be proud to be doing this if I were working for the Red Cross or anybody else, but I'm particularly proud because I understand Jewish history a little bit and know what we've been through. And the idea that as Jews, that the Jewish world is providing us with the resources to help Jews and non-Jews really feels that this is a main reason that a center like ours exists. And I have had 3 of the most difficult, 3 of the most challenging, 3 of the most sleepless, 3 of the most stressful, 3 of the most intense, and 3 of the most beautiful and rewarding weeks of my life, I have to say.
Well, that's pretty reflective, John. Nice job, nicely done. All right. If the only thing the JCC of Krakow was doing was the work that you do on your average week, I would say Dayenu in terms of, of just incredible sacred work. But, to know what's going on, to know the way the JCC is stepping up and as really being a light unto the nations. It's just, Jonathan, it's just extraordinary. And they're so lucky and blessed to have you leading the charge. I want to remind everyone what I said a few minutes ago, that there is an active campaign, and there are lots of organizations raising money for Ukraine. There's an active campaign going on in Park Avenue Synagogue right now. All of the money raised, and God willing, we will hit that $1 million mark. All of the money raised is going to one of 4 Jewish relief organizations doing the sacred work of helping all refugees, not just Jewish refugees. One of them is the JCC of Krakow. So I encourage you, if you're on this call and you have not yet done so, you can go on our website. There's a landing page for all things Ukraine, including dialogues like this, sermons that have been given, and a one-click for fundraising. And please, you heard the needs, right? They need a lot of things, but most of all, there is the need for money so that the JCC can continue to do the sacred work that the organization is doing. So, Jonathan, I want to thank you. It's great to see you. I hope to see you sometime soon in New York, but we all understand that it might be a little challenging to get away. But God willing, in the year ahead, Bruce Springsteen and the E Street Band will be touring, and we will be standing shoulder to shoulder at a show, right? So that's when we'll know that,
backstage, Neil.
That I can't promise you, but so I want to thank you. I want to thank you for all you're doing. I want to thank you for taking the time out of what I know is just a very, very busy time in your life, for letting us know both what's going on, the work you're doing, and how we can be helpful. If anyone has any questions about, you can reach out to one of us in the synagogue, and we can direct you to Jonathan, and we'll be in touch. All right, Jonathan, thank you.
Thank you so much, my friend, and thank you, everybody.
We'll see everyone soon. Okay.
Thanks so much.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.